It is time for another edition of ACC Baseball Etc, presented as always by our good friends at Pitch Logic, the system used by players, coaches, scouts, and instructors at all levels of play, from youth leagues to the big leagues. The easy-to-use and affordable technology makes the platform accessible to every player at every level. All the metrics and features used at the highest level. You can go to pitchlogic.com for more information. With the 2024 MLB Draft upon us, I'm Daron Vaught. I welcome someone who hopes to hear his name called toward the end of day one. I mean, I guess if it's called at all, you'll be thrilled.
Yep.
Griff O'Ferrall, Virginia shortstop and all-time good dude in college baseball, is with us on ACC Baseball Etc. Griff, hope you're doing well. What's life been like since Omaha, the Combine? Are you just chilling out right now?
Yeah, it's been a little hectic, going Omaha and then having a 2-day turnaround, getting on a 5 a.m. flight out to Arizona for the Combine. But a lot of really fun experiences, so nothing to complain about for sure. But yeah, I've been at home in Richmond since the Combine, just working out, spending some time with some family, playing a little golf, trying to pass some time until the draft and stay ready for when I get sent out to play. So
how nervous of a time is it? Maybe nervous isn't the right word. Anxious. I'm trying to relate to my experience sort of between college and I'm using air quotes for the real world because you understand. I know your experience is different than that of somebody who's graduating with an econ degree who's going to get a finance job or whatever. But it's kind of the same thing. You can relate, right? This is a very anxious time for someone in your shoes or the other scenario. So what have the feelings, emotions been like?
Yeah, it's a lot of different emotions. It's some excitement. It's a lot of excitement for sure. It's definitely some anxiousness. I have no idea what to expect Sunday. Not even just on how high I'm going to go or where I'm going to go, but kind of just the whole experience of it. Obviously, you only experience it once. If you're lucky enough to experience it once, so I'm definitely not taking it for granted. I'm definitely super excited for it. But I've been talking to some my current my teammates from this year. We've been talking about it. We've all kind of been bonding over the fact that we're getting a little anxious just sitting here waiting for it, counting down the days a little bit. But I've also talked to some guys from previous teams, Kyle and Jake, who went through it, and just kind of asking what to expect. And so I'm passing the time, but it's definitely I'm getting close to being done with kind of just sitting here for it.
What's been the most helpful, either from one of the former guys or a part of the current group, because there's a handful of you guys who are going to go relatively high, I think. What's been the anecdote from any of those guys that has sort of resonated best?
Yeah, I think it's really easy to get caught up in all this, all the numbers and all these mock drafts and all this stuff. And I think the best piece of advice, that it's a very obvious one, but one of my previous teammates was like, "You're in the MLB draft. Like it's." You don't need to worry too much about if you're going to go high enough, if you're going to go at this certain number. Like you're still getting drafted into the MLB draft. So it's like, and that's like, it's one of those like take a step back type of things, because you see all these mock drafts and you're like, wow, I hope I really go at this number or to this team. And it's like at the end of the day, I get to play professional baseball in a couple weeks. So it's something that I'm just trying to enjoy more now than kind of just like worrying about stuff like that.
Well, let's take that step back. How early did this become a dream of yours? Like something that you wanted to accomplish, and wanting to is one thing, right? Like I, at 6 years old, was like, I'm going to play in the major leagues. And it happens for, or it doesn't happen for way more than it happens for others. So in terms of a goal that you started to realize, okay, I can actually make this work. This is a dream of mine. Like, when did that start?
Yeah, I think honestly, I watched a lot of MLB growing up, still do. So it's always been something I'm super fascinated by. But, I've talked about this a couple of times in the past few weeks. And, I told the UVA coaching staff this, my dream was to play for the University of Virginia, to be honest with you. So the dream of playing professional baseball kind of developed while I was during my college time. But, as far as when I was a kid, it was always to play at UVA, play college baseball. College baseball looks so fun to me, and I can confirm it was very fun. But, kind of like, I say after my sophomore year, getting to play for Team USA, and then all those talks started coming about the draft, and that's kind of when I was like, okay, like this is my new dream. This is the next step. But so yeah, I'd say those are two dreams that have kind of developed over time.
As that progressively came into focus, the potential to be drafted,
Mhm.
did that change anything about the way that you prepared for games, prepared yourself?
No, I wouldn't say so. I mean, obviously, it's not like I, worked any harder now that the draft was on the horizon. I've always been the same as far as I've always loved playing every single day and working. Working at baseball is really fun to me. And I've had coaches, thankfully, my whole life that have been really tough on me and, pushed me really hard, all the way from travel ball when I was 12 all the way to through UVA. So it really didn't change anything for me. If anything, it just was another layer of excitement that the game was presenting. So it's in the back of your mind, just like, oh, that's in July, that's gonna be really cool. But as far as like changing how I play, I don't think it really changed much.
Yeah, well, it helps to kind of be busy up until this point, like you had
For
said.
sure.
You had a couple of different things going on,
Hmm. For
in the
sure.
meantime, sort of stacked up back to back. Uh, I can I talk about your recruiting
Hmm.
journey to get
Yeah.
to Virginia? Is it true that they were essentially the last team in on you?
They were the last team in, and I was the last commit for our class. It was all super late. I definitely developed late, but I also played football every fall, so I didn't get to go to like big showcases and stuff because all those showcases are in the fall. So I was always like I was playing in like around the area travel tournaments. So I never got that big recruiting, and so I went down to Georgia for a PBR games, which was like the first big tournament that I did, like travel tournament. And thankfully, Max saw me in late August because it was getting to that point. Like at that time, everyone was already committed or like committing by that time. So I was starting to feel the pressure of like, okay, I guess I need to commit. And I was talking to a lot of Virginia, in-state Virginia schools, and I was like, there's a lot of great options here. Like I think it's about time. And then I went down for this last tournament of the summer, and thankfully Max saw me down there. And within 2 weeks, I was committed to UVA. But it did happen very late, and it happened very quick.
So you said that was your dream, playing at Virginia. Was that
Yeah.
something that was on your mind that you sort of like you were like, okay, I've got these offers. It's not like I'm not going to have the chance to play baseball, but maybe if I go to this bigger event, I can get on their radar. Was that a conscious thing?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was really excited about the options that I had already been, talking to and stuff. But growing up UVA fan, like it was always in the back of my mind. I was like, dang, like I would love to go to UVA. And there was just one last tournament, and it was an opportunity to play with a bunch of really good players. And I was like, all right, well, I mean, I've never really gotten to do these big tournaments. Maybe I'll, catch some eyes down there from some other schools, and it'll open some other stuff up just in case one last tournament. And I remember I was sitting in the dugout during a rain delay, and I got a text that UVA was gonna be there, or they wanted to talk or something. So and then like obviously when I started talking to UVA, it was kind of hard to hide how badly I wanted to go there because obviously they hadn't offered me or anything. But those initial conversations, I'm sure Matt could tell that I was like all in on UVA. But yeah, it was exciting time for sure.
All right. So I want to make our way to the combine.
Mhm.
If you could for me, compare those initial conversations with the Virginia coaching staff to conversations you had with big league
Mhm.
organizations, because I would imagine it's kind of a similar feeling, right? Like
Yeah,
you don't have a preference when it comes to your professional career. I wouldn't think necessarily, like as long as
mhm.
you make it.
Right,
And then that's the dream realized.
right.
So was it sort of the same type of giddiness that you couldn't quite hide in those conversations? How did that go?
Definitely. I think those conversations are actually a lot more similar than you would expect as far as like the baseball aspect. I think a lot of those conversations, whether it was in high school with UVA staff or at the combine, it talks about who you are as a player. what areas you need to get better at and what areas you excel at. And that is pretty much what I went through with recruiting too. It was same things, Mac and Oak would ask me, we love that you do this. We think you can get better at this. We see you impacting this team this way. And all three of those things are kind of the same things I heard at the combine. So, there's definitely some other small things because obviously professional baseball introduces a lot wider, it's just a lot more things. It's your job at that point. So there's some other, random little questions. But as far as like the big three, like who you are as a player, it's pretty similar actually.
Yeah. My understanding is that you performed really well in these interview processes at the combine. Was there anything that took you by surprise? Like something that was just like way off the board or whatever it might have been?
We also did meetings in the fall with these teams. So the general questions I was pretty prepared for as far as I'd heard them before. But there were, there's always some random ones that they try and get you to trip up. But there was one question, and it was, how long would you survive in a zombie apocalypse? I was a little rattled at that one. I think they were just trying to see how creative I could get on the spot. But so there's some like random like questions in there just to see how you kind of respond. But yeah, so I think as far as like the general questions, I think I was in a good shape for sure.
How did you respond to that one?
I said I would last longer than everyone else because I would act like I had already gotten taken by the zombies and like cover myself in all this zombie stuff and act like a zombie and then like try and like stay undercover for a while. I don't know. I mean, it would end up not working, but I think I would last a little bit.
Yeah. What else about that process? And again, like your world was a whirlwind at that time because you were in Omaha, like you said. What 2 days later you flew to Arizona for that?
Yeah.
What else about that experience stood out? Because obviously it was important to you to go. Otherwise, I think, there are a lot of guys in similar situations who passed up on it, right?
Right.
So what else about the draft combine experience stood out?
Well, for one, being able to go with three of my teammates was awesome. I mean, we started the trip with a 5 a.m. flight out of Charlottesville, which, just being with Casey and Ethan and Didowick, just like being with some of your closest friends on a trip across the country is pretty cool. And obviously, what we were doing, trying to fulfill our dream to play professional baseball made it even cooler. So it was kind of like a road trip with some of your best friends, and you got to go talk to a bunch of MLB teams on the way. So it was a kind of a win-win for us.
Did you guys on the way, like, what did you do to pass time? Were you like sort of I'm envisioning like you guys are all in the same class there at UVA and you're preparing for a test, so you're like quizzing each other. Was there any of that, trying to use like, okay, a GM or somebody with an organization might say this to me or ask this of me?
There was definitely some some like, do you think they'll ask this, or how would you guys respond to this? Just kind of like bouncing ideas off each other. We couldn't really hang out much on the flight because our seats were spread out, and we all got middle seats for the 4-hour portion of the flight, which was not great. But so we couldn't really practice or really do much of anything during that. But there was definitely some bouncing ideas off of.
Aisle or window? I need the answer for all four. Do you know what the preference for all four of you guys would be? Aisle or window?
I don't. I love window just because I like to like look out. Unless it's like a really long flight, because then like if you have to go to the bathroom or something, I'll do aisle. But like window is pretty cool for me. Ethan was just distraught that he was in the middle. He like anything but the middle for him. He was so upset, which was kind of funny. But
I know like taller guys, they like the aisle because they can stretch out. So
right.
like maybe that's it with Ethan. That would be my
Yeah,
guess.
I don't have that. I don't have a huge problem with that, not being a super tall guy. But yeah, Ethan just doesn't like to be crammed like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go back to Omaha because that's kind of where this conversation started. Just a cool experience, I'm sure, as a player, right? Like obviously you want to win more there, but if you would just describe this year's team, getting to the College World Series and kind of what that meant for you personally, for the group, and what you took away from it.
Yeah. I think something like Coach O'Connor always talks about is how every team every year is different. And I didn't truly process or understand that until this year. This year's path was completely different from my first 2 years. As far as the playoffs, it was the same because we hosted regional, hosted super, got to Omaha. But like throughout the season, I mean, that was the most comeback wins we've had in a season in a long time. Like we had all these just super weird games. We had, unfortunately, we had some injuries. We lost Brad Hodges, Jack O'Connor, some really big pitching pieces to our staff, and we had to find a way to, some guys who weren't expecting to pitch as much pitched a lot, and we had to find a way to kind of piece some stuff together. And offensively, we had just a really good lineup, and some guys, didn't get to play every day that would probably play every day at 99% of the other schools. And so it was a lot of, little details like that. The best part is that, we were so close as a team and we worked so hard together, and, there was no jealousy or selfishness. And so kind of seeing all those things going on, but not affecting the outcome, and, seeing how we could still pull it together and do so well in the playoffs to get to Omaha. Obviously Omaha, we would love to have done better there. It's a really tough place to play. It's Omaha for a reason, top 8 teams for a reason. So, that's definitely disappointing, but still just the way that we kind of came together and performed in the playoffs to get to there was really special.
Can I get you to brag on Coach Oak and the rest of the staff for that matter?
Sure.
There was some conversation at various points in the press box in Omaha. I mean, you recall the pitch into Honeycutt and that whole situation, but obviously the way that the trips to the College World Series have ended recently. I don't know how familiar you are with the show, but like, I've told you, like, I have the utmost respect for him, and people, I think, forget when you see a program in Omaha so frequently, just how difficult it is to get there, and that being there with consistency is the accomplishment in a lot of cases. It's not what you ultimately strive for, but if you don't want more, what are you even doing there, right? So just now that your career's over, what has Coach O meant to you as a player?
Yeah, I mean, everything is the cop-out answer. He, obviously as a coach, but I think my favorite thing is seeing how he handles himself outside of the field, outside of practice, outside of games, seeing the way he handles media, seeing the way, he's every single interview or every single, the first thing he does is gives credit to the other team or the other coach or, another player. And it's just that selflessness that he, brings to the program, which is why our program keeps getting back to Omaha. And I think that's something, people have asked me a lot. People ask Oak a lot. It's like, how do you guys keep getting back? And it's obviously there's talent, right? They recruit really well and there's really good players, but talent doesn't get you to Omaha 3 of the last 4 years. It just doesn't really work that way. And it's the small details, like carrying yourself the right way and worrying about, completing those little details in practice, treating every practice like it's, your Super Bowl, which is what they do. It is every single practice. It is extremely intense the whole time we're on the field. No exception for anything else. No tolerance for any, lackadaisical play or anything like that. And just kind of what they've created on a day-to-day, the culture that they've created in that program. It's a program that, people sometimes tell me, like, it doesn't look like you guys have a ton of fun. Like, it doesn't look like you guys, like, are bouncing around and laughing and smiling. And it's like, the culture at UVA is fun because we win, and it's like, that's kind of the culture they've created. And we have a lot of fun, but we also have a lot of fun depending on each other and depending on, us to put our best, result forward. So, kind of getting to work as hard as we can with our teammates and being as successful as we can is kind of what makes it fun for us. So I think it's a special program, and like you talked about, like there's so much unfair ridicule for him, but also just college baseball coaches in general, professional athletes in general. It's just like it's the social media thing where it's everyone judges everything. The second that we lost in that walk off, it's all anyone could talk about. Couldn't talk about the whole season and how it was Oak's third time in 4 years, and they were saying why he pitched a honeycut. The guy behind him was one of the best hitters in the ACC that year. Had already had 3 hits that game. It's like obviously Honeycutt and Casey Cook are ridiculous players, but it's like everyone's criticizing Oak for pitching a honeycut when the guy behind him had a ridiculous season. So it's like it's just little details that people don't really put together, and he gets a lot of that hate, and I think he knows that. That's I guess part of the job, and he's really good at handling it. But it's definitely some unfair ridicule for sure.
Yeah. This might be difficult to answer, but I'm going to stay with the Coach Oak angle. He was your coach, obviously, the whole time you were at Virginia. Is there a point at which it becomes clear that, okay, this is my guy? Like he's in it for me. This is going to be a good head coach player relationship. I mean, again, you kind of go in with that assumption, but you've played with guys for whom and against guys and seen it across the country for whom that's not the case, right? It's not always the fit that you think it's going to be. Is there like a moment or a collection of moments with Oak where it kind of became clear, like this is going to be symbiotic and we're both going to benefit from this?
To be honest with you, there wasn't a specific moment. It's, I think it's tough for college baseball coaches to get too close with their players because it's such a business. So, that doesn't stop the players and the coaches from having a good relationship. And obviously me and Coach Oak got extremely close. But there's definitely a sense of, this is a business, and we're here to win. And if you're not playing that well, then just because you have a great relationship doesn't mean he's not going to put someone in over you. So I wouldn't say there's one moment where I was like, okay, like we have boom, it clicked, we have a great relationship. I think it's something you build over the years, and it's honestly something you earn as well. Not just by results, not just by being good, but kind of the way you handle yourself. And if you work hard for Coach Oak, then he's going to love you. And that's kind of what it is at the end of the day. And, I think working my butt off for 3 years, I just kept growing that relationship with him, and he kind of saw what I was willing to do for the team, and, I vice versa. And so I think it's definitely something that kind of grows over time.
Yeah. Yeah. We've talked about the handful of you guys who are looking to get picked relatively early in this draft. We haven't mentioned Jay Woolfolk, and I want to touch on him. You guys spent last summer together with Team USA, which is where I got to know both of you. And he came in with a lot of hype and hope for this coming season because he had left football behind in the rear view, and it was kind of up and down, but he had his great moments. I mean, we started the season, I was with you guys in Jacksonville, and he looked really good and was the reliever of the tournament, I think was the distinction, that sort of, and he had the great postseason outings toward the end of the year. What was it about his presence that was maybe comforting down the stretch, and just sort of what did he give the team in the later going?
Yeah, well, to put it plainly, he gave us a third starter, which we really needed. We had gotten to a point at that season where we had 2 great starters. We had Joe Savino and Evan Blanco. Blanco was usually the Friday guy, and then Joe Savino would be a Saturday, and they were just outstanding. I mean, Blanco was outstanding the entire season. Joe was obviously hurt for the first half, maybe more, and kind of worked back in. But once he got back in, he was lights out. So at that point of the year, to win in the playoffs, a lot of those, games are 3 games, like the regionals, it's 3 games, and then supers, it's a 3-game series. So, and then Omaha, obviously with how it's, kind of made up that bracket, you need 3 starters. So, to put it plainly, he gave us a 3rd starter that we were confident in, but, he's just a big game guy. He's just an adrenaline guy. So, you can see it when he gets in a groove. You can just see something click. And I was super excited when I heard he was going to start that Mississippi State game, because he was frustrated with how some of his outings went during the year. But that game was an example of like a clean slate game, because if you do great in that game, the whole rest of the year is forgotten. Like it doesn't even matter, because you just sent us to a super regional. Obviously, foreshadowing, he then pitched 8 1/3 or whatever he did. So, but he's a adrenaline guy. He's a big game pitcher. And that's obviously at that time of the year, that's what you need. So it was cool to see that.
Yeah. In terms of him and the other guys, what's the communication going to be like over the weekend and into the early next week, just depending on when you guys go? Is there a text chain that's going to be just like on fire? And what's your setup going to be? Are you having like family around? Is that sort of what that's going to be?
Yeah, so I'm staying at home here in Richmond. I'm having family, and a couple of like my closest friends are going to be here. And I'm trying to keep it, fairly small during the draft, just so I can focus and not, I'm already going to be nervous and anxious enough. I don't need like a bunch of people here. But then I'm probably going to have some close friends and some family friends who supported me through UVA over after the draft and everything. But yeah, definitely. I mean, I was on the phone with Ethan this morning. I've been texting Harrison Didewick past couple hours. So we'll do a little group chat or something, and just congratulate when each one of us gets off the board. So it's definitely exciting having five guys that are hoping to go, and maybe more. I mean, because we had Anthony Stefan is definitely on there. I think there's a good chance that he could go on like a day 3 situation, just because he's an outstanding hitter. And, obviously he didn't get to play as much as probably he wanted this year because our offense was so ridiculous. But he, everyone knows he's an unbelievable hitter. So he's definitely in the conversation to go as well, which is cool.
Yeah. This should have been a follow-up earlier when you were talking about meeting with teams. You talked about the conversation sort of being similar, and it's like, this is what we think you're great at. This is what we think you can be better at. Are you at liberty to say like what the sort of the vibe is on you as a prospect? Is there anything that maybe took you by surprise there?
Nothing really took me by surprise. The biggest critique, it was kind of like a critique / compliment. It was like, my swing and miss rates are pretty low, and I don't strike out a lot, but I also swing out of the zone a little bit. So yeah. It's like with me not really swinging and missing, I should be more comfortable getting the 2 strikes, and I should probably take some positive, some plus count pitches that I can't really do damage with. So, which I kind of knew. I definitely am a very aggressive hitter, and there are definitely some swings when I'm like, I don't really know why I want to hit that pitch, but but I kind of knew that going in.
Yeah. Well, cool. I think that's it. That's it for me, man. I just really appreciate it. You've been good to me, both with this and USA Baseball. Getting some time to talk last summer was great, and obviously that was a fun ride with the July 4th game. And we could have probably talked for another 30 minutes about that. But I know you've done that bit. That was last summer. We'll let you get to it. Best of luck headed into the draft. Appreciate the time. Congrats on a great career at Virginia, of course. And who knows, maybe we'll catch you down the road for the show in the midst of a pro career.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate you having me on here.